It is. We're live. Hey! Hi,
Hey!
everybody. You caught us.
Hello.
Our little pre-podcast dance party. Here we are. My name is Gina Hansen. Thank you for watching our episode tonight. It's called How Habits Can Make or Break Your Life and push you to the next level. So my guest is Joy Rivera, coming to you from the Philippines. She and I go
Hi.
back. We go back a few months now. We were both members of a certification neurolinguistic programming coaching certification class that we met online. And as soon as I met her, I was like, oh my gosh. Her energy was like, ooh, through the roof. And that's why I had to bring mine up so I could keep up with her before this interview. She is young, as you can tell. She's like in her 20s. She's super fun, spunky. And what I love about her is the topic of this conversation tonight is about habits. She is the queen of habits. And I can't wait for her to tell you more about some of the things that she does. It's super inspiring to me to watch her Facebook stories every day and see what she's up to. Now, besides being a neurolinguistic programming certification participant or a facilitator. What do you call that?
NLP
Practitioner.
practitioner. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I said the whole thing. NLP practitioner. She is also an optimal life strategist, helping many women transform their lives, build those skills that will take them to the next level in their lives. So this is my friend Joy. Welcome, Joy. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I mean, it's such a privilege to be invited to this podcast that you have. And I feel quite aligned with the purpose and the mission of why you're doing this podcast. And that's why I'm really excited to be here.
I am too. I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I've always wanted to know. I see you posting in our TCP or transformational community and some of your posts and showing how you stay organized. I'm like, wow, I need to learn more about this. so, so how did you start on this personal development journey?
Okay. So maybe I'll give a little bit more background about myself. So to everyone who is watching and listening, I am Joy from the Philippines, and yeah, to what Gina mentioned a while ago, I'm an NLP practitioner. That's actually how Gina and I met. I also have my transformational. I do coaching. So I basically coach specifically on clarity and confidence, and also high performance. And I'm also a brand manager in corporate right now. So I've had more than 8 years of experience in multinational and local corporations, mostly in change management and brand building. Okay, but like beyond the corporate experience, personal development has been something that's with me since at the age of 13, I would say. It's super young. I didn't really quite intentionally planned it, but growing up, I wasn't really a wide reader. But the first book that I actually read when I was 13 was Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And it's because that book was actually just lurking around in our house because it was a gift given to my parents, and like they also don't read. That's why I also do not read so much. But I like the challenge of actually reading just one chapter a day for 40 days. And so for me, it's like, okay, so it's not really like that daunting goal that, oh, you gotta read like so many hundreds of pages to finish a book. Like it felt achievable, and it was a fun challenge. And after I basically read that book, it changed my life. That was the very first time that I met the concept of purpose, and since then I've always been in that quest of discovering our own purpose and what that means for me, and it has been evolving, and up to date it's still evolving. So yeah, that's how I started with personal development. So it's been 15 years.
Wow. So it sounds like such an opportunity for you to learn that have this tool for you to use in your future, like now you're in the corporate office as well as starting your own business, and you've taken this early on concept of purpose and really started to live with purpose and
Yeah,
focus
well, I would say that
intention.
I haven't always lived with purpose every single day of my life. I mean,
Really?
everyone
Because I
would
tell
have
you, your Facebook stories are like, what is she doing today? Oh my gosh.
it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Seriously, you
but of
inspire me.
course, I'm still a normal person. I'm not like a super unicorn, but I mean, I'm still a normal person. We have our own ups and downs. Um, but I think to our topic today, which is why I super love our topic also today, habits is really the key to kind of like keeping at it.
Right. So is it today your day 74 of your exercise challenge that you've started for yourself?
It's my week 74. Yeah,
Week 74.
week
74 weeks.
74.
Wow.
So it's my week 74 of exercising 5 to 7 times a week. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I
Yeah.
love when you post all your sweaty pictures and then you're dancing, so much fun.
Yeah, it's something that it's one of my favorite habits that I built throughout my life. Actually, I started working out back in 2016, so
Mhm.
technically it's not week 74, but this is like week 74 is my challenge to kind of like be really consistent at exercising at least 5 times a week. Because scientifically, high performers exercise at least 5 times a week for at least um, 30 to 45 minutes per day. So that's kind of like,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was so inspired by what you do that I started walking again. So,
I'm so
see?
glad.
You're
Yeah, I'm so glad
right.
people actually get inspired with those posts. Even if
Mhm.
they keep repeating, like my
Yeah,
face is still the same, but like just a lot of people also get inspired from it.
totally. Yeah. Okay. So now we're talking about habits and we're talking about exercise. Would you say that that is a habit that is most successful people need to focus on their health? Or does that relate to building their business in any way?
Well, actually, I would say that the, at first, my understanding around habits was really more into doing. Like, okay, I'm gonna do something, and then I'm gonna repeat it again, and then it becomes a habit. But then eventually, I also realized that habits are not just about the things that we do, but also about the things that we think about. Um, and that's precisely in terms of why I do it. I don't just do it. I initially did it for health because I got diagnosed um, with polycystic ovaries and also some kind of like cysts on my breasts. And so that was the that was the signal for me to kind of like, I have to really be relentless in prioritizing my health, because if I don't, then this quote unquote genetic sicknesses would actually um catch up. And at the end of the day, like, I have so much that I want to do, and I want to serve, and I want to achieve and experience in life. And without a rock solid excellent health put in place, then it's not going to be possible. But eventually, my journey around habits is not just something that initially I did it for health, which is great, but eventually it affected so many aspects of my life. It positively affected my self image, my self trust, my self worth, my discipline, and it also
Mhm.
how I show up, not just at work, but also in my business, also in the way that I think about life and things like that. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway though is that, habits, yes, you can listen a lot about it, you can read a lot about it, but not until you actually do it and be that person who actually does the habits that support your life to just really vibrant every day, then the level of experience and insights is not going to be the same.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah.
have to tell you, you just shed like a bush. Like I had this light bulb moment when you said habits are not just doing and they're being. And I realized and thinking, when you're thinking, our thoughts are things that we create. And so if we change the habit of how we're thinking, that is huge. That's like mind blowing because in my mind, habits are more of like check mark. I did this. I did this. I did this today, but never thinking about what I'm thinking about. you know. So that
Yeah.
was such a great point that you brought up there. That and that is a habit as well. Like catching ourselves, changing our thoughts around things and our perspectives. So thank you for that. Um,
Yeah, I think that's a really huge thing as well. I mean, because at the end of the day, we're products of our thinking. Our
mhm.
thinking drives our choices, right? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I'm thinking that, what inspires me is how you track everything, you showed on our Facebook post like a graph that you made by hand and you
Habit
check mark
tracker. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we have a friend here. Let me share her. Say hi, Maria.
Hi, Maria. Nice. I'm
Good to
so
see
happy
you.
you're here with us. Okay.
So we're talking about, Maria, Joy's got a tracker where she marks down everything. She's got so many things that she's doing. Tell us about it, Joy.
Okay, maybe I would actually go a little bit back and kind of like explain the why behind them doing those things, because a lot of times like people just really do something because okay, so I want to do this, so I'm going to do this, like changing the behavior,
Mhm.
right? But a lot of times people fall off their commitments to themselves. Like for example, a lot of people have been asking me like, how do you exercise consistently and blah 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 blah. And so many people, they want to be fit, they want to be healthy, but they fall off their commitments. And it's not to say that they don't want it, they still want it, but they don't do it, right? And that's because the subconscious part of the brain is the one that drives 95% of our behaviors, right? So we like to think that we're in control, but actually our conscious part is just responsible for 5% of our decisions. And one of the key things of really getting the subconscious part of our brains on board is to really create those habits. Um, and so why I became really relentless in creating habits that support me is actually grounded on my purpose. Like I would say that in addition to workouts, clarity is also a huge habit that I've built through years. And a lot of times, like, people would actually tell me, "Oh, you're so young and you're so lucky that you're clear with what you want to do and you're doing it," and things like that. But actually, I would disagree that I'm lucky, because it's actually a habit. A lot of times, I think the the society has this kind of perception, or thinking, that clarity is something that just dawns to you, right? Like sometimes you just kind of like, you keep doing something and then you keep exploring and then it's suddenly just boom, it comes to you. That's also okay. Like clarity also comes from action, but action without a direction, it's like driving around and you're not gonna get on your to the to your destination. But like there's a very advantage, right? So um the reason why I am very relentless about these habits and I'm very also thoughtful about the habits that I allow myself to form and keep is because for me, at the end of the day, going back to what I mentioned a while ago, I want to live a full life. and a full life that is very, very connected to my purpose. And while that purpose is not necessarily the same all through my stages of life, like it evolves
Mhm.
through I as I also evolve. Um, that is the reason behind it. And second, so that's the first one. I'm doing it for to live a purposeful life. Second is that, um, in terms of really creating habits, it's actually the way to make things easy. Like a lot of times people think, "Oh, I it's so hard to be consistent. I'm not consistent with myself," and things like that. But the reason why I got to this week of 74 of exercise, and now it doesn't even feel like work to me anymore. Like it doesn't I don't feel any resistance to working out. I just do it without any resistance at all. Is because my subconscious is already very programmed to it. Like I just really naturally do it. I feel like something's off if I don't do it. And yeah, the this this thing is actually something that has when I crack that, I'm like, if this creating this habit has made it super easy for me to work out already, why can't I do this for other aspects of my life as well? And that's when I started creating that habit of clarity, of always thinking about, like, are the things that I'm doing today aligned with my mission in life, right? So not
Mhm.
just something that you do on an activity, but like on the thought level, I also create habits around the thought level. And then I also create, like, for example, I'm the type of an overachiever and overdoer. Like I have the tendency to really push, 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 push until I burn myself out. And so because when I realized that, because I created that habit of being conscious, of being aligned with my mission and purpose in life, I
Mhm.
realized that I push myself to the extent of burnout, right? And when I realized that pattern of mine,
Mhm.
that led me to the realization that, oh, okay, so I now need to create habits that would support me and would prevent me from my pattern of pushing myself to burnout. So I
Mhm.
create new habits of intentionally meditating. I create
Mhm.
habits of hard stopping at a certain time in the evening. I intention I intentionally put habits around play and fun and no structure, right?
Mhm.
So it's like one thing leads to another. But what's really important about it, I think, is really the why behind it. Like, what are you trying to achieve with building these habits?
Mhm.
And then let the habits reprogram your brain and mind so that you don't necessarily always need to exert effort and exert so much willpower to create those habits that are going to propel you to your mission and purpose or goals in life. So, yeah, I hope that kind of like clarified and answered.
Yes, because habits for a professional are usually lots of doing, but also the importance of self-care and wellness and balancing out all aspects of your life. Sometimes we overwork and then our relationships get neglected and things. So putting the habits in place actually makes your life easier to have more fun and, you know, flow with your work and your other life. Right?
Yes, yes, definitely. Like, and I think what's also really important, another important thing around building habits is changing that story that creating habits is hard. I think a lot of people would have that, that, when you start a habit, you're gonna be stuck in doing something for the rest of your life, or like it's so hard to be consistent and
Mhm.
things like this. You gotta do it over and over and over again. But I think, um, what a key thing to really building that high performance habits would be to start small and then choose to keep at it. And more than listening to me, guys, like it's really about doing it, doing it, and actually patting yourself on the back when
Mm-hmm.
you make small progress.
Totally. Yeah. And I know you and I learned how to get rid of habits and also add habits in through our course. I think that's been helpful for me to break habits. And even someone who smokes or has crazy habit, like I had a habit of cleaning my ears and it was like, you need to stop cleaning your ears. It's just too much. So I was able to break that and feel so much healthier now that I'm like not. Yeah. So I think that it's important for us to look at our lives and say what I want down the line, and then start building the habits in creating that new identity, that person that we want to be in the future. Healthy, number one, keeping your health up, and then letting the other habits fall into place with your work life, right?
Yeah, and I think another thing that I also really make sure when I mean, one thing that I really consider when I revisit my habits, because I revisit them every month. So I revisit my habits every month. Do I still want to keep this habit, or do I want to pivot it already to a new thing? I think that's really important. And what I use to actually guide those habits are my values. Like, who am
Mm-hmm.
I? Or what do I really value? What are my top
Mm-hmm.
priorities at this specific stage of life of mine? And what are the habits that are going to allow me to live in alignment of these values?
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, in this stage of my life, like I'm in my 20s, right, late 20s, um,
Mm-hmm.
I really value well-being, relationships, and impact. So I make sure that I consistently track the habits that I do every single day, aligned with the things that I value the most, right? So for example,
Mm-hmm.
I value well-being. So I make sure that I get enough sleep, I get good exercise while having fun, and I don't eat too much junk food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I spend time with my family. So next value is relationship. So I make sure that I intentionally listen on my conversations. And this is not just with my family or my friends, but it's also something that I intentionally do at work and at business. Because my relationships are not just all about my family and friends, but it's also I also have relationships with my clients, right? I also have
Mm-hmm.
relationships with my colleagues, right? And impact is like, what is really the kind of impact that I want to create with my one life, right? And is my work, what are the avenues that my work and my business can do, or like, how do I align my work, my job, my business, or whatever it is that I'm doing to kind of like make sure that those things are aligned with the kind of impact that I want to create with my one life. Because at the end of the day, like it's like super easy to get sucked into the daily grind of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always like go 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 go, and then the next thing you know, you don't really know where your time went.
Yes.
So it's really important that the habits that we build are really grounded on the things that we value long term. Like, what are the things that you will value on your deathbed, right? The things that are going to make you say that I have lived my life to the full.
Totally. I have to share this comment. There we go. Maria said, "Old
Old
soul."
soul joy. Old soul joy. Though I still look young.
Seriously, you have lots of wisdom for someone in their 20s. And I think it's all of this engagement that you have, with the book reading and the, surrounding yourself in a coaching environment and really putting yourself out there, investing in yourself because you believe you want to make an impact on the world. And you've dropped so much information that I find super like crazy, awesome, great.
Um,
And the importance of where you're at, where do you want to be, always checking in with yourself as time goes, changing habits. This is, I don't need this habit anymore. Let's try this, being flexible and always moving towards your end result, that person that you want to be. I love it.
yeah. I'm glad. I'm glad, and I hope the people who are also listening here, like, if there is one, I know that I dropped, I said a lot of things, but like maybe if there's just like one thing that I would really encourage you to, is to just really start small and be consistent at it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the big changes, the big transformations, or the big amazing um awards that
Mm-hmm.
the world actually show, they're just like icing on top. And maybe I would share something around my experience in doing a marathon, like a 42-kilometer run.
Sure.
Um, because normally a lot of people actually tell me like, why are you so crazy, right? Like only a crazy person would actually pay and actually spend so much for just to run, to kind of like tire yourself the fuck out to run 40 kilometers, right? Like you can literally die in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is like, those things normally don't happen just like overnight. Like one has to train for months and months, right? Before, and that event, that 42-kilometer run, is just like an icing on top. But what happens behind the scenes are actually what creates the transformation. It's in the daily discipline of like really committing to what you promise to yourself, more than what other people think, right? More than what other people think, it's like how you think of yourself, and like being really committed to it. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
I promised myself that I'm gonna do this. It's like, even if I feel sleepy, even if I feel lazy, or like, oh my god, I'm gonna run for like 21 kilometers again, or like spend
Right.
hours on like tiring my body up. It's really about persistence. And another thing that I would also highlight is that it's achieving those humongous goals can be easy. Like for a lot of people, it might look scary. I mean, it also looked scary for me at first because of like, what, me? I'm gonna run 42, right? So, but I started with 3 kilometers. I started with I started very small,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a it's something that we already know. I'm sure that a lot of people listening here right now, you already know a bunch of stuff that me and Gina have been saying. What I cannot emphasize enough, that what creates the magic is really in the doing and the being. It's not, I mean, knowing is just the first step. Knowing is the first step, which is why like really checking in with ourselves and assessing our commitments and habits on a regular basis is like super important. But at the end of the day, what really moves the needle is really freaking doing it and being that person that you want to be, more than just knowing it. Because we live in an information era. Like there is no lack of information where we live in.
Mm-hmm.
You can literally Google something, or like find something in YouTube if there's something that you want to learn more about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, what separates the high performers from the mediocre ones, what separates the people who actually live a purposeful and meaningful life versus those who actually just go by with their lives, right, are these things. It's really in the doing and the being is in the alignment of everything that we do.
Mhm. Completely. And I love that Maria mentioned celebrating, which you also mentioned earlier. Like, take it a day at a time. Like, you didn't look at your progress 74 days ago and say, I wonder if I mean, 74 weeks ago and say, I wonder if I'll still be doing that in 74 weeks, right?
Yeah,
No.
and actually, I don't post to inspire other people on my workouts,
Mhm.
at least on my
Mhm.
workouts. Of course, there are other bunch of stuff that I do for my clients and my coaching business and things like that. But for my workouts, I didn't really start the week one, exercise day 6, week one
Mhm.
for other. It's really for me rewarding myself that regardless of what other people say about my stories, this is me celebrating myself for being committed and for being self-integral to what I say I'm going to do, and I'm celebrating that unapologetically regardless of what other people think or feel or see.
Totally. Yes. I'm doing a 77-day video challenge, and I'm on day 35 today. And I also have learned through that habit of showing up
Mm.
on a live stream that you don't have to be perfect. Just keep your word, to yourself, and how good you'll feel after you follow through and it's done, and you're like, yay, I'm at 35, tomorrow's 36. And then you start to build that momentum. Like, you get to a point where you're just like, that you're going to do it, even if it's at the end of the day and you don't even feel like doing it, but you're going to do it because you said you're going to do it, right?
Yeah. And
Totally.
it's fun. More than being
It
hard,
is
it's
fun.
fun. Keeping
Mm-hmm.
commitments to ourselves is like fun. Wow, day 35 out of 77. Almost halfway, my
Yeah,
friend.
totally. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about tonight, because I find habits such an amazing thing that we have the choice to either, break or make. And that's what it does to our lives. It either makes or breaks our life and what we want. And so thank you so much for coming and joining me here tonight, Joy. But before we go, is there anything else, any other tips or like life hacks you have that you feel this helped your life that you like to share with someone else?
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna share three things. So
Okay.
for those who actually want to start doing this habit thing and actually see for yourself how it can change your life, first is actually start small. So, like
Mhm.
for example, don't put habits that you think are very big. So, like for example, in my experience, putting a routine is a big goal because it entails a series of actions that you need to do consecutively. So if you're just starting, so I wouldn't recommend that. I would actually recommend something that's easy. So like for example, um, stop at this time. Super easy and super clear, right?
Oh, that's
So it's
great. Stopping is a habit.
yeah, right?
Yes.
Like it's something that should be instantly actionable. Like it's very clear if you did it or not.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, if you just put learning, learning is not a clear enough habit to put, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, okay, what do you want to learn, how long do you want to learn, right? How do you actually know if you did it or not? So it has to
Mm-hmm.
be it's something that should be measurable and something that should be clearly actionable. So that's one.
Mm-hmm.
um, Second is you gotta be at least consistent for a month, and then things are gonna start to be easier. So at first, like there's really gonna be a resistance, and what I would really suggest is to embrace the resistance. Don't resist the resistance, because it's like moving on, or it's like getting over grief. The more that you resist it, the more that it's just going to shout louder. So just really remind yourself that, yeah, discomfort is really part of it. Like no amazing change actually happens without any discomfort, right? So that applies to a personal level, organizational level, and even societal level. um, and then third is to actually get an accountability partner.
Mm-hmm.
So it always helps me to actually broadcast something that a huge habit that I am committing to like a friend or a coach that I have, or like an accountability group that I have, and things like that, because just adds, according to science, people are 70% more likely to actually keep their commitments when they have an accountability buddy or group or a coach. So those are the three things. If you can forget all about those things that I shared, totally not. But like, I hope those three things, those actionable three things, would really help, especially people who would want to improve their lives through habits, right? So yeah.
Joy, you're a little frozen. There, you're back. Okay, good.
Okay.
Okay, so how can people connect with you and be in contact?
Oh, okay. So yeah, if you want to contact for any reason, you want to have a casual chat at all, you can literally DM me in my Instagram. So my personal one is at Kathleen Joy Rivera. And for my coaching business one, it's at Unleash the Magic Now. And then you can also, for more information about what I do, who I am, and what I'm all about, you can actually also check out my website at www.joyriverainternational.com. So
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. And if you enjoyed this video or audio podcast, please share it out and comment below, and also leave a rating.
yeah,
Appreciate all of you.
I'm also gonna be super keen to hear what people actually think about this. If you have any objections or like things that you think are controversial, I would be happy to actually hear your thoughts as well on that. Because constant improvement entails not just always agreements, right? But all diversity of perspectives is super important to constant change and improvement. So yeah, thank you so
Totally.
much for those who are tuning in.
Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you again for another podcast episode. Good night.
Thank you.
Aloha.